Fulfill Radio, a voice you can trust. Broadcasting live presents Two Guys and a Bible with Don Preston and William Bell. Join us each week at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central as we bring you exciting, sound, challenging, and comforting messages regarding the end times. Thank you for tuning in today. Don Preston is the founder of Preterist Research Institute, or PRI. Don is a prolific author, having written and published 19 books, a host of audio and DVD studies, and is a debater and defender of the full preterist view. His websites are BibleProphecy.com, Eschatology.org, and DonKPreston.com. William Bell is the founder of AllThingsFulfilled.com Ministries and has a website bearing the same name, and has authored 3 books, audios, and DVDs. He has published hundreds of articles and recordings. And now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Two Guys and a Bible broadcast with Don Preston and William Bell. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is William Bell, the absent-minded professor, along with Don Preston. Coming to you today on Fulfill Radio, Two Guys in the Bible, voice you can trust. And I guess you can't trust this one. At any rate, we're delighted to be with you. I have been engaged in some studies on Facebook. We had a debate Sunday night with some Hebrew Israelites, and I was doing a review along with Elvin Israel, and just got caught up in the moment. I mean, you know, I've been teaching all day. I don't know what time we started, but I didn't even look at the clock, and I was just getting wound up when I got the phone call from Don. So literally, I had no clue of how much time had passed. And but I know it's been several hours, and people are still there listening. They were listening when he called me, and you know. But anyway, we're having a good time. So, but we're delighted to be here with you. I apologize to you for being late, Don, and to the audience. And thankfully, we got it. Got a chance to get in. So, how are you doing? What's going on? You don't have to tell me. I know you're busy as a bee, trying to get everything done, and for the upcoming weekend. But go ahead and give us an update and let us know what's happening.
Well, I had suspected when I tried to log on and no one was there, I had strongly suspected that you were involved in some discussions and studies, and it didn't surprise me at all. I mean, look, folks, I've got to tell you something. I don't know of anybody right now that is busier, that is doing more online than William Bell. Need to shoot that thing, William.
Yeah, let me get that while you do it. I threw it over against the room earlier, but I need to get rid of it.
But I mean, everyone needs to be fully aware of the fantastic job that William is doing. He is studying with, about, against the Black Israelite movement. He and Elvin are having a tremendous impact on that community. They're changing hearts, they're changing lives, they're changing minds in a way that truthfully and honestly, probably no one else could have the kind of influence that they are having. William and I have said many, many different times, and this is true of anybody and everybody. No one person has the ultimate impact. We all have an audience, so to speak. We all have a circle of influence, and it really gets down to the fact that my circle of influence may not be William's, and William's may not be mine. Collectively, the two of us may be able to have an audience that maybe no one else has. Because of the partnership and because of the just simply the way that we work together and what have you. I mean, I have received tons and tons of correspondence from people who have told me repeatedly, we've just never seen anyone that works together like you and William do. In fact, William, someone asked me just recently, they said, do you and William Bell even disagree on anything? And I said, well, I said, occasionally we do, but I set him straight and we move on.
That's about right. I don't deny it.
No. You've set me straight plenty of times. But the point of fact is, and here's the thing, folks, William and I do correspond very regularly, asking each other questions and making suggestions. I sent William an idea in his preparation for his debate on baptism that will be next year, just an idea, and he sent back and said he thought it was a great idea. I thought it was something that he probably had already thought of, but you never know what the other person is focused on. You never know the particular focus of their particular study and what have you. So we do interact with each other, but we have told each other many, many, many times that it's really good that we each have our own independence, that we each do our own research. And so that's what makes it incredibly impressive, I think, when we do get together and we start comparing notes, and it's like, yeah, that's exactly the way I see it. And so when someone asks me, do you and William ever disagree with one another, I say, well, it's certainly not very often. And it's really on very, very minor details when we do disagree with one another. And the great thing about it is, of course, we just feel perfectly comfortable studying with each other and throwing things out that some people may go, oh, you shouldn't be talking about things like that. You shouldn't be thinking. You shouldn't be questioning, blah, blah, blah. Well, why not? I mean, if we're going to be students of the Word, then we ought to be able to investigate it and to study and to discuss issues with one another as Christians without the fear of recrimination. But William knows as well as I do that Facebook has turned into a venue for people to just viciously, maliciously attack those that they disagree with. And they throw around the terminology of heretic, false teacher, cult leaders, all this kind of stuff like that. And it doesn't matter how many times you catch them in overt, blatant lies, overt, blatant misrepresentations of what we believe, and you point out that they have misrepresented, you point out that they've told a blatant lie, and they don't ever even apologize. They don't ever say, well, I'm sorry, I thought you believed such and such, but now that you've corrected it, I appreciate that. No. They disappear from that discussion for a day or so until the very next day they pop up, and guess what? They're telling a brand new set of lies. And of course, the sad thing about that is you have others that join in the fray just simply because they don't like some of the positions that William and I hold and teach and espouse. And yet we've said over and over and over again, show us where we're wrong. But instead of trying to show us where we're wrong, exegetically, what they do is, well, everyone knows you're a heretic. Everyone knows this doctrine is false. The church has never taught this, blah, blah, blah. And folks, I'm sorry, that's not exegesis. That is not argumentation. And you can call us names all day long, but it doesn't prove anything. And so, William and I have been at this an awful long time. We've been called just about every name under the sun. We've got awfully thick skin. I'll tell you that.
You know what they called me the other night, Don, in the debate?
No telling.
Well, one of them called me Grady. You remember Sanford and Son?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I remember that. Yes, I do.
Yeah, they were talking about my gray hair. I wanted to say one thing, though, in talking about some of the influence that Elvin has had. And we've already had people to contact us from the discussion. Elvin is already doing studies with some people that, look, I want to know what you guys are saying. And while it's really dirty sometimes, when I say dirty, I'm talking about, you got to roll your sleeves up and step, kind of in. situations that you don't want to be in when you're having some of these discussions, because you know what people are going to be saying and how they're going to be acting and everything. But Elvin came out of a situation that wasn't really a bad one. I mean, the one that we were in with that situation was really a pleasant discussion between the two of us. But he came out of that situation, and he came out intending to refute. You know, his initial thing was to destroy what we were saying. And after listening to the debate 3 times, he finally said, this makes a lot of sense. And by the 5th time he had listened to the same debate, he said, I'm in. And, man, has he been in and really doing a bang-up job, you know, in talking to people and encouraging. But what I wanted to say was, we had 2 studies last week with 2 friends of mine, and both are school teachers. And they've been able to see everything, and now they understand it. They're not, you know, I mean, you know, they're not well versed at this point. But, you know, as school teachers go, they take copious notes, they ask great questions, and they let you know when they don't understand. And so it's just been, you know, those were like 2-3 hour marathon studies as well. You know, they took place at my home, and some of them have taken place on Zoom, which is so ideal for having these kind of classes. But Sunday, her husband is, you know, one of them husband is a minister. And so she had gone home and started sharing with him. Well, he came Sunday. We had a meeting at a McAllister's Deli down in Olive Branch, Mississippi, not too far from the house. And so we studied for 2 hours. That was prior to me going into the debate that night. And after we finished the study, he says, I can't teach something that is against my conscience. And he said, this makes totally sense, you know, sense to me. And so he got his questions answered. Well, he was supposed to go to bed last night because he had to get up at 3 a.m. in the morning. And so at 10 o'clock, you know, I think we started about 9, and at 10 o'clock, you know, we were saying, okay, it's time for you to go to bed, and we wanted him to get some sleep. So I was having a conversation with his wife and her aunt, and all of a sudden they said, oh, I hear him in there. He's not asleep. He's still up. and so we extended the conversation a little bit until it was just time for him to go. But they are really, really excited about what's happened. Now, these are 2 school teachers and a preacher, okay, that have now been convinced. They're not members of the Church of Christ. They're in a very strong, large congregation, and they know a lot of people. They got a big family, and they're not the kind of people that sit on the knowledge they receive. So I've been really, really grateful for those studies and for what is taking place. I just wanted to share that because it's it's a good situation. And his mother and father, by the way, are both preachers. You know, which I'll tell you a little bit about them. But she has a PhD. He's not afraid to tell his dad. But
that says a lot right there.
Yeah. So we're just hopeful that that everything goes out. So, you know, just throw up some prayers for him, because he's now looking at, you know, what he's got to face. And but he's the type of honest gentleman that has a conviction for the Word of God, and he's a genuine person.
That's just fantastic. It's thrilling, really thrilling kind of news. And it's what I was saying a few moments ago to the audience about how much we need to appreciate the ministry that you've got, the influence and the impact that you are having. You know, right now, almost all of my studies are strictly online. They're on Facebook and what have you. And so to know of the studies that you're having personally face-to-face there in Memphis is just absolutely thrilling. You know, I did have a really good conversation this last Saturday with some folks who were coming through. We met together for about an hour and a half. I'm still studying occasionally with a local minister of one of the larger churches here in town, also not a Church of Christ. But there are several folks who attend there who once attended the Ardmore Family of God, and they are absolutely full preterists, and they attend his congregation. I have studied with him for a little over 3 years. In private, he tells me he is absolutely a full preterist, but he is trying to make sure that he lays a proper foundation. He's trying not to split the congregation. And, he keeps asking me, what do I do? What do I do? And I said, I can't tell you what to do. That's not within my purview. All I can do and all I'm here for is to share with you my understanding of the Word of God. It's up to you to decide what you do with it. And he goes, boy, you kind of put it all on me, don't you? And I said, well, that's where it belongs.
That's right.
I said, I made my decision years and years and years ago. I knew what I had to do when I came to a knowledge of the truth. And I said, you know what? Everybody studies at their own speed. Everybody assimilates the knowledge into their lives at a different rate. And I said, the one thing that you'll find with me is I'm never, ever going to sit down with you and say, okay, look, dude, you got to get up this next Sunday and you've got to drop the atom bomb. You got to tell everybody exactly what you now believe. I said, you're never going to hear me say anything like that. And he said, well, of course, I really, really appreciate that. But he said, man, I've got some decisions to make, don't I? And I can tell you this, all of his sermons are put on the internet every single week. And I have listened to some of them. And I want to tell you, I have sat and as I have watched, I have thought, well, one thing is for certain. That was a full preterist sermon. And number two, his audience clearly, number one, has caught on and is agreeing, or number two, they don't really understand a word he said. One of the two. But he gave some lessons, a couple of different lessons on marrying and giving in marriage in the kingdom in the age to come, based on Luke chapter 20. And I had given him a copy of my book, and he had sent me an email. He said, I want you to listen to my sermons over the next couple of weeks. And I did. And I was literally astounded as he taught, and he said, folks, this passage doesn't teach what an awful lot of people say it does. The main thing I want you to see is we're in the kingdom now. We're currently living in the age to come. And boy, you could hear the amens, the amens, the amens all throughout the audience. And I'm going, They don't get it. They do not get it. Or else, yes, they do get it. And everything's going great. But, I don't know what's going to happen there. But the point of it is, I don't have as much contact insofar as local studies with people face-to-face as you do. And so when I hear about it, it is absolutely thrilling. I mean, it is really, really thrilling to know that your long-term efforts are bearing some fruit now. And I know it's got to be more than gratifying to you, William, and the struggles that you have gone through there in Memphis, experiencing all the ostracism that you did, being shunned like you have been, and yet now to see doors opening like never before, literally.
Yeah, it's really great, and I'm enjoying it. I'm really happy at this point, and I can just see, with young guys coming up as well, and of course all the work that's done, and I'm just grateful for it being a servant done. That's really it. I didn't even know I could teach as long as I do sometimes, and so this stuff just rolls out now. They used to tell us when we were young preachers, they said, get full of the Word of God and it'll just come out. Well, it's just coming out now. That's So
yeah,
that's right. If I got an opportunity, we share it. That's it.
Well, that's all the servant heart is. It is taking the opportunities that we are given. It is walking through the doors that are open. It is simply sharing the results of all of the study that we have and continue to do. I've got to tell you, I heard a preacher say some years ago at the Denton lectureships, he was preaching on the AD 70 heresy. And he said, these brethren want to change everything. Everything about them is they change. They're constantly changing. He said, I want to tell you right now, I haven't changed a single belief of mine in 50 years. And I turned to my wife, and I said, well, that must mean he stopped studying about 50 years ago. To tell me you haven't changed anything that you believe in 50 years tells me you stopped studying 50 years ago. And as an illustration of that, my 2 lessons at the Predators Pilgrim Weekend, which begins this Thursday, folks, here in Ardmore. And, oh, by the way, William, did you get your flight information that I sent to you?
I do have it. Thank you. I have it.
Okay, great. Okay, very good. Well, anyway, starts this Thursday. As we shared with you, if you cannot be here with us, we want you to be sure to tune in for the live stream video, which is free of charge. We certainly welcome any gifts, any contributions you want to help us with to defray the cost of getting the people in to do the technological side of that. But the point of fact is, it is a service of our ministry that we want to offer, and we are glad to do so. But my 2 lessons will be focused on the Song of Moses and the last days. My first lesson will be on the Song of Moses and 2 Peter. Technically 1st and 2 Peter, but 2 Peter 3 in the last days. My second lesson will be on the Song of Moses and Paul in Romans 9 to 11. And I have to tell you, folks, this has been some really, really challenging research. I've been studying, and William has as well, has been studying the Song of Moses for years. And we have seen, known, recognized for years that the Song of Moses just permeates the New Testament. And by the way, scholarship has recognized this for years. Richard Hayes says that the Song of Moses is paradigmatic for Paul's entire gospel message. Now just think about that, folks. Here's a world-class scholar who says that the Song of Moses is paradigmatic. It drives, formulates, dominates, controls Paul's gospel. And yet I'll guarantee you, in the fellowship in which William Bell and I were raised, that concept, that idea is absolutely 100% foreign. Were you to suggest that? You know, if I were to be invited right now to preach at any of the traditional churches of Christ, or I would say this, at any of the local Methodist churches, any of the local Presbyterian churches, any of the Assembly of God churches, were I to be invited to preach, and I were to stand up and say, ladies and gentlemen, I want to share with you the Song of Moses, which is the dominant theme, the controlling paradigm of the gospel of Paul and of Jesus as well. I'll guarantee you that 99% of the people sitting there would be going, what? Number one, they would probably go, what is the Song of Moses? I know that would be true in the churches of Christ because I talk about the Song of Moses a lot with people, and if I don't tell them the Song of Moses is Deuteronomy 32, I start getting this very perplexed look on faces, and they will eventually ask me, what are you calling the Song of Moses? What is that? Now look, I was there. I understand that ignorance. But that doesn't mean the ignorance is excusable. And so what I'm saying here is that this concept of the Song of Moses, even though I've been studying this concept, this idea, these relationships for years, literally, putting these lessons together has been a truly challenging and, boy, rewarding study and bit of research. I mean, I've been starting, day before yesterday, I hit the floor at 3:20 in the morning and went until late that night. And this has been on my mind 26 hours a day, trying to make this research that I've been doing flow in such a way that the audience come Thursday night, in which my first lesson will be the Song of Moses in 2 Peter 3 in the last days, in which everyone will be able to see and to say, wow, that's fantastic. I had never seen that before, but it's right there. It's clear and it's undeniable. And so this whole concept of ever studying, never, back to what William said a moment ago, just filling up our hearts, filling up our minds on a continual, ongoing, unending basis with the Word of God, so that when we have opportunity to share, it just naturally overflows. It just comes out. And we are able to see increasingly the connections between the Tanakh and the New Testament. And this is such an exciting, such a rewarding time in my life personally, and I know it is for William as well, to see so many people coming to recognize the interrelationship between the Old Covenant and the New, and how we simply cannot ignore those relationships, and we must correlate and assimilate the entire message, not just part of it, but the entire message, in light of the fact that the New Testament writers tell us repeatedly that their gospel, their doctrine, their eschatology was nothing different from what the Old Testament prophets said would happen. Now, I can guarantee you that's foreign to an awful lot of people. It is absolutely, utterly foreign. And it's even shocking to a lot of people in some fellowships. But it is absolutely undeniable. And I'll tell a quick anecdote here. Some years ago, I had a group of preachers contact me and say, we would like to fly into Ardmore, Oklahoma, and we'd like to study with you. Okay, that's fine. There were 5 of them that flew in. We sat down around a table, and I said, fellas, I asked them first of all, I said, what do you want to study? I had a pretty good idea what it was going to be. And they said, well, we understand an awful lot of what you have to say, but really the key issue is the resurrection, so we'd like to talk about 1 Corinthians 15, which is precisely what I had expected them to say. I said, okay, that's great. I said, tell you what, let's lay some groundwork here. I said, first of all, let's understand that no matter what we may think about 1 Corinthians chapter 15, it is taken directly from and is nothing other than what was found in God's Old Covenant promises made to Old Covenant Israel. I quoted Acts 24, 14 and 15, Acts 26, 6 and following, Acts 26, 21 and following. And I said, fellas, here's the bottom line. I want to ask you a question. Are your eschatological hopes, is your hope of the resurrection found in 1 Corinthians 15 based upon, taken from God's Old Covenant promises found in the Old Testament? God's Old Covenant promises made Old Covenant Israel. And they sat there and they looked at each other out of the corner of their eyes, and they said, well, our traditional answer would have been absolutely not, because God was through with Israel at the cross. I said, well, that's what I was raised believing. We studied for about 5.5 hours. And after the study was over, one of those brethren contacted me, and he said, I've just got to share something with you. He said, the minute you started out like you did, establishing that the resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15 was about God's promises found in the Old Testament, he said, I knew right then and right there that my eschatology was wrong. I did not know what your explanation was going to be and all of the details, but I knew right then, right there, when you established the truth of that statement, I knew that my eschatology was wrong. And that whole group of 5 ministers, and then another one was added, who is an elder in another church in Alabama. All of those men are now full preterists. And so this just goes to what we're talking about here of the ongoing study and the willingness to study. And William, what you're seeing there, what I see, even on the internet, private correspondence and what have you, there are unprecedented doors being opened like never before. I got a call this morning from our mutual friend Holger Neubauer. And he was telling me that at the conference that will be in Michigan in about a month or less than a month, they have several ministers who are going to be there, 2 or 3 of whom are already convinced. They just simply haven't gone public yet with their convictions, but they have told him and told a few of the others they are absolutely convicted and convinced of the truth of covenant eschatology. There's a group of 4, perhaps 5 ministers who want to stay over until Monday. A couple of them have said they want to meet and to study with me personally. I mean, this is just super, super exciting stuff, that there are a growing number of ministers crossing all denominational boundaries and borders who are coming to understand this doctrine and to accept it. And like the gentleman that you were studying there with, William, who are understanding that there's a price to be paid. The question only remains, will they go ahead and will they pay the price? We'll see. But my goodness gracious, how exciting it is.
Oh, that's absolutely correct. And that's, I, like you said, I'm really excited about what's happening and seeing it in so many places that it's just, continuing, it's growing. What amazes me, Don, is how long people will listen to, teaching. Like you said, you had a 5-hour class. I've done 3 and 4 hour classes. I'm used to, people saying, okay, give us about a 30-minute lesson on Sunday morning and we're ready to go home.
That is amazing, yes.
Yeah. I told somebody the other day I was glad that Theo and them prepared me for this a few years back, when I went there. I'm thinking, I'm coming from a Church of Christ environment, right, going into a Pentecostal environment, so to speak. And I went there thinking, okay, I'm going to go here and do me a quick 1-hour lesson and I'll be done, go relax, etc. I finished that lesson and looked at me like, where's the rest of it?
Yeah. That was the introduction. When are you going to start talking?
We were at the university, man, and I tell you, I think it was to 11 or 12 o'clock every night before they were ready to go home. I mean, and they sat there with eager interest every single night. I mean, it was all I could do to just, have enough information to present. I made it through, but I guess I was kind of prepped for some of this work that I'm doing now, but it was rather interesting. But it's good to see that people are receptive, that they're open, and that they're learning. And it's good to also see, even with the ones who are protesting what we're doing, they keep coming back, Don. They keep coming back. And, it's almost like Marshall Keeble. When he was preaching, people would come hiding in the bushes and everything, and some of them would get caught. And they'd be walking out from under from around the bushes to get baptized. So let them keep coming. Some of them might get caught.
That's right. Yeah, you mentioned Marshall Keeble. My goodness, what a fascinating character he was. He was one of my dad's very, very favorite preachers. My dad had got to hear him many times as a younger man, and he just thought he was outstanding. He had, passed away before I ever came along, but nonetheless, like I said, my dad thought he was just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, well, excuse me, I heard some of the same stories about him. All right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we've had a good time sharing some things here. We're almost out of time, but I was thinking, William, we've been in Isaiah chapter 56, and this will be very short, obviously, because here we are. We've used up 45 minutes of our time tonight just sharing these things. But again, we hear from people who appreciate hearing the news. This is like I have been asked year after year after year at the Preterist Pilgrim Weekend. You need to devote one special time just simply to share what's going on with your ministry, what's going on with William's ministry, what's going on with other places. Is covenant eschatology growing? And so I've done that from time to time in just very short spurts. So I know that people do appreciate us taking some time occasionally here on this program to share the progress that is being made through our ministries and the even the books that are being written. Speaking of which, I have been asked to give an update. I did this on my morning musing this morning. I have been asked several times over the last couple of weeks, when is your book on the death of Adam, the life of Christ, going to be published? I've been working on that book and working on it. And my good friend Scott Fisher out of Dallas was kind enough to take the manuscript and work in it in Microsoft Word, which I absolutely deplore. I hate it with a passion. I don't know how to use the formatting in it very well, and I don't want to learn. So anyway, Scott was kind enough, gracious enough to volunteer to do the formatting, and he ran into one problem after another. And when you couple that with the fact that just recently Kindle and CreateSpace combined, they combined into simply one unit. Well, when they did, they developed they developed some glitches in their system, and it has been a nightmare trying to work through those glitches. I just finished publishing a book, the second book, by Dan Derry out of Canada. Excellent book that will be introduced at our conference starting this Thursday, by the way. It is entitled The Case for the Second Coming. Like I said, introduced this Thursday. But anyway, the process that we went through getting his book ready, I have never, ever, ever encountered so many problems with formatting. And we had to contact CreateSpace or Kindle and get them to help us work things out. We went through 6 or 7 different proof copies before we ever got everything worked out. Well, I'm happy to say, for those who have asked, I approved my proof copy of the book, The Death of Adam, the Life of Christ. I approved that today. Now, we will see if they approve my approval and tell me that it's ready to be published. I don't know. We will wait and see. We went through that, like I said, 6 or 7 times with Dan Derry's book before they ever said, okay, it's ready to be published. So I'm eager to know. I'm ready to publish this book. Once it's published, and this answers another question that I've been asked by a lot of people, when are you going to publish your book on the Sabbath? And I am extremely eager to get busy on that book again. The book will be entitled Celebrating the Eighth Day. And I can guarantee you what, folks, I've been reading an awful lot of books on the Sabbath. I have I have not found one that even comes close to developing the issue of the Sabbath even remotely closely to the way I am developing this book. I believe that people will find this extremely, extremely powerful if you will spend the time to do the research with me, to follow along with what I'm presenting. Because, I mean, this is some incredible, incredible stuff, and a whole lot of it has to do with Israel's feast days that I've been promising I would develop. And so, be looking for that. I went back in my files this week and looked at it. I actually started this book, William, almost 5 years ago. And it's still not done, but of course, I've published 3 or 4 books in the interim. So I haven't been working on it full time, but I have been researching and adding to my notes and what have you, on and off. So it may well wind up being my magnum opus. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know this. It's already over 300 pages long, and I am not close to finished. I'm already thinking about dividing it up into two volumes. I don't know if that is what I will need to do or not, but if necessary, that's what I will do. So it's a fascinating study. It is one that I think will be worthwhile. It is one that I think will be I hope will be an incredible contribution to the entire study, not only of eschatology, but to the study of the Sabbath that is so grossly misunderstood in the denominational world today. So that's an update on on the projects that I'm currently working on, and I hope that answers those questions. So with that said, William, I suppose we could ask the question: what do we want to talk about for the next 10 minutes?
Well, I'm not sure. Well, we could talk a little bit about the discussion I had the other night, and just kind of share a little bit of that. We had a discussion with a couple of Hebrew Israelites. One of the guys actually teaches a class called Morning Milk or something of that nature. I don't know exactly the title of it. The other person has written some movies for them and written some books. And is quite well known in their community. He does a lot of research on things, and so he has sort of made a name for himself. And they called and asked us if we would, have a conversation with them, have a dialogue with them, and so we did. And so they wanted to go ahead and carry it forth to a discussion on the differences between the end time being fulfilled in 70 AD as opposed to, or in the past, as opposed to it being yet future. So we agreed to the discussion, and it's a little bit hard trying to nail them down to some protocol, but we know, not to expect anything too orderly when we go in, and both of us, are pretty much familiar with that. And so the way that the format was supposed to be was that we were going to have, each person asked a question, the other person was going to answer it, et cetera, and we're supposed to have 5-minute responses. Well, before we could get the first question out and the first response to the question, there were interruptions going on, and until we finally had to ask them to turn off, the mics of everybody except the person that was speaking. Elvin had to ask to be allowed to speak because 2 of them would speak with 1 of us speaking. So, it was one of those kind of situations. Finally, we got it, to a reasonably acceptable way. But some of the things, that we covered, and they never did really advance any argument to support their contention. They were there basically to try to destroy what we taught, and they had a real difficult time even, just dealing with some things. And, as debates go, you have people throwing out a lot of passages and say, answer that. Well, the first gentleman led off in the debate with a question asking me, after, our propositions and what we're supposed to be proving is, did Christ come in the first century in connection with the fall of Jerusalem, et cetera? And they were supposed to be proving that he didn't. Well, the first question we get is, do you keep the commandments? And I said to the guy that, can you demonstrate to me how that question has anything to do with establishing the time of the coming of the Lord? And so one guy wanted to oppose, the other guy wanted to oppose. Just answer the question, And I said, no, I'm not going to deal with it if it's irrelevant to what we're saying. If he can demonstrate to me or rephrase that in a way that it refers to, that it establishes something related to the proposition, I said I would be concerned. So then he says, okay, no problem, I understand the question. So he went back and he started with Matthew 5, 17 and 18. And I said, okay, now we got something to work with, so we see where you're going. And so his argument, of course, was that heaven and earth had not passed, and therefore the law was still in force. And it's basically the Seventh-day Adventist argument and the argument that they advanced. And we walked them through some of the passages that talked about the world was already passing, Matthew 24:29, et cetera, and Matthew 24:34, that says all those things would take place in that generation. We gave them Hebrews 25 through 27 to talk about that, tied it in the Haggai 2:6 through 8, and that it was a yet once more, et cetera, going on at that particular time. And so from that, they really didn't have any response to it. Of course, their approach was, okay, I didn't answer the question because I didn't say anything about keeping the commandments. But,
right.
And that's the kind of way that, most of their rebuttals went in terms of anything that we would say. And so they had, they wanted to know if Christ has come, where is he? And, and I pointed out once again, there's again another question that has nothing to do with the relevance to the proposition, et cetera. But because that question was related to the hope, and the hope dealt with the nature, I did respond by giving them Colossians 1:27 and told them that the hope was Christ in you. And then because of their, physical views, I asked them, okay, then tell us, if you believe that Christ is physically going to be in you as your hope, and also addressing some of the things that they, had to say or that they believed about the land. So we took, opportunities to address things from that point of view. One interesting point that came up, and this is one that, the guy thought was very, very strong. So he, in trying to deal with the generation argument on Matthew 24, he said, well, the Greek and the Hebrew is different, but this was actually written in Aramaic. And so he goes to the Aramaic resource to make a linguistic argument, and almost one of the first things that comes out of his mouth is that it was a period or an age, which I already knew because somebody already brought that issue up before about the Aramaic. And so when I responded, I told him, I said, well, the Aramaic says basically what the Hebrew says and what the Greek says, and that is that it was a period of time. It was that age or that specific generation to whom he was talking to, and I tied it back into Matthew 24:3, et cetera, and responded to it. He tried to pull Irenaeus, and we cited that, and I actually had several ante-Nicene references available. They were, of course, I just pulled them down on the shelf. One of the interesting points that he made was that the gospel didn't go to the Ethiopians until, and this is his argument, of course, on the end of the world. So he said, this is, this will just destroy them because the Bible said the gospel had to go to the end of the world. And remember, I said he's the guy that does all the research. I mean, he came in with all these facts. He had broken down the population of the world to 1.2 million people here, et cetera, et cetera. He says, do you know the 12 apostles will have to go to all these people? They had no planes, they had no boats, they had no cars, et cetera. And you're going to say they went to all the world to teach all of these people. And the Bible says when the gospel was preached to all the world, then the end would come. So I responded. I said, I got just one question. I said, and I want you to read these particular passages when you answer the question. So I threw out Romans 10:18, Colossians 1:5-6, and Colossians 1:23. Well, when he started to respond, he said, man, he says, these people don't know logic. They don't, and he says, we don't need to read the Bible. He said, this stuff is not making any sense. And he wouldn't even read the passages. And so finally, Elvin spoke up. He says, I'll read them. And so he started reading the passages, and he read them, and they interrupted him again. And then the other guy, his partner, started reading the passages. And he started reading Romans 10:18, and then I responded again and gave him Romans 16:26, and explained a couple more things after they had read them. And then once that was done, I said, now here's where he gave up the whole debate, which he's been doing all night, by the way. And I said, he just told us that if the gospel had been preached to all the world, then the end would come. And I said, ladies and gentlemen, here are all these verses telling you it had come to all the world, to all the creation, to all the cosmos, all of the land, et cetera, and then the end would come. I said, that's the end of Matthew 24:3, verse 14, and it is the end that came within that generation. And we have this word to confirm that. And I tell you, the look on his face at that point, it was priceless. And that, was basically how we closed out the debate. And but it was like that pretty much all night. And, they took issue with us, made the usual ad hominem and personal attacks on us. They did everything they could to discredit me and, called me all kind of names. But there you go. So that's pretty much a quick wrap up of what I've been doing all day is recapping that debate. But I've been doing a lot of teaching in between as well. So that's it for me.
Oh, that's fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic. And that brings us to the end of our program tonight. Folks, thanks for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed the little bit of news with what's going on in our respective ministries and what have you. Do not forget, try to be with us for Preterist Pilgrim Weekend this coming Thursday, July the 11th, 2019. If you cannot be here, be sure to join us live stream. I'll be putting up a schedule of the speakers, their topics. William will have to give me his sermon topics between now and Thursday, but we'll be putting up the links. We will be putting up links for you to watch live stream, so you don't want to miss it, okay? I hope we set another record of people tuning in to watch Preterist Pilgrim Weekend. Last year, we set a record. I believe that it was a record for the largest audience, so to speak, that has ever viewed a Preterist function. So we want to break that record again this year. In the meantime, thanks again for joining us for Two Guys and a Bible right here on Fulfilled Radio, a voice you can trust. And with that, I will say good night and God bless.
Thank you for joining the Two Guys and a Bible radio broadcast. On behalf of Don Preston and myself, we'd like to say have a very pleasant day and may God bless. Until next time, we'll see you on Fulfill Radio, a voice you can trust.
Oh.